Hello there, everyone. Welcome to my channel. Welcome back. My name is Alan, and if you're here to read Dubliners, you're in the right place. Let's see. If you're here because you're Irish, you're here for the right reasons. And Alan right Mahan, you spell that M-A-H-A-N, kind of like they took the Mick off of McMahon when my, let me turn this off. I'll be editing this out. There, that looks even better. So yeah, they took the Mick off of my name coming over to Ellis Island. I'm third generation, like the McMahons of, Jim McMahon, the football player. Or this statue Fred Joyce is in downtown Dublin, and the funny thing about this is he's wearing two different boots. He's wearing his left boot on his right foot and his right boot on his left foot. And to this day, no one knows if that's just Irish bull. I mean, if it was done on purpose or accident, or well, of course it matters. But I'm coming from a Dublin perspective of 1996 when I was over there, the summer of '96. So that's where I'm coming from. I was really into, well, I've been into Joyce since I was 13 years old, and I'm 50 now. My grandmother gave me my first copy of Ulysses. Now I think I'm going to start with the sisters because that's a great place to start. And Joyce, it's the first story, and Joyce is very meticulous in all his decisions he makes. Everything is for a reason with Joyce. One moment. Hello, hello, hello. Again, welcome. We're going to be talking about Joyce and Dubliners. And I'm going to apologize right off the bat and say I'm going to probably jump around. I tend to digress. I'll try to keep it to a minimum. I do have notes, so I'm not just talking out of my yin-yang. Watch till the end because I do have an agenda. I have a reason for doing this, and I'm gonna let the cat out of the bag at the end. So I'm gonna start with some Joycean trivia background a little bit, then kick it off with the sisters, and then I'm gonna do next right away two gallants, and I'm going to do Clay, because those stories are, let me just tell you off the bat, if you're coming to Dubliners just straight out of the gate, never read Joyce, maybe you read Araby, this is going to be a bitch. You're going to be swimming in over your head, unless you're from Dublin and you grew up there, and you're Catholic, and you were brought up in catechism, and were an altar boy, and went to confession, things like that, or Irish helps, grew up in an Irish family with all the Irish lullabies, and old King Cole was a Muriel soul, and a Muriel soul was he, and combed his hair with a wagon wheel, died with a toothache in his heel, Humpty Dumpty had a great fall, Huckleberry Finn, Finnegan's Wake. There's arguments that Dubliners is a step to Ulysses, and it is. It's a step right over Portrait to Ulysses. Does that mean Portrait is all Joyce's great, top shelf. There's people that say in 500 years, just by studying time, Not saying that Joyce is better than or whatever. They say Joyce is going to be like Shakespeare is now in 500 years. Shakespeare will still be highly regarded, but as time goes on, you know, and Plato and Socrates go down, and Shakespeare, and it's going to be like that. It's a weird thing to think about. Joyce is a genius. So I told you I've been like into Joyce since I was 13. I've got about, I've got 4 decades of studying Joyce and that. It's a long time. Now, some of the greatest Joyceans published, and Roland McHugh, who wrote Annotations of Finnegan's Wake. I can't even pronounce what he is, but the guys who study, the people who study bugs, anthropologists, he's one of those. I don't want to digress too much. Joyce is meticulous, every to the last letter. As Ulysses begins and ends with yes, literally it begins with stately, plump Buck Mulligan. Stately spelled backwards is Y-E-S, stately, and at the end it is yes. I said, yes, I will, yes. The Sisters is the first story. The Dead is the last story. Those titles could have been switched, because in The Dead, there's 3 sisters, and in The Sisters, there's a dead guy. The Sisters, the story, it's a very, very short story. It's so packed with information. The first 3 stories are childhood. The book is divided up into 4 different parts. Childhood, young life, mature life, public life. And then the stories were put together, except for The Dead was written last. It was going to be separate. And I won't digress into Finn's Hotel, which is out now. I've never read that. That was the impetus for Ulysses, but we'll get to that later in a different video. We've got all month, people. Dubliners, we'll be able to cover Dubliners, Dublin, a lot of things in March. I look forward to it. I look forward to some discussions. I haven't been into Joyce and keeping up with the online Joycing communities in a long time. Over 5 years. And I'll get into that. We live in an age now, what I won't be giving you are, not in this video, or like in the description below, see below with all these links, because I want you guys to turn me on to some stuff. I remember back in the 80s and 90s, there was a Robot Wisdom. I'll have to check it out, see if it's still around. Jorn Barger, right, was his name, if anybody remembers. Had everything on his site, not only for Joyce, but for like Robert Anton Wilson, and that was 20 years ago. Let's get into The Sisters. So, Dubliners was rejected 22 times. Long history of problems with publishing. There's the printing galleys were destroyed by some bastard who was, up in arms about it being obscene, different parts, obscenities of the Queen, symbolism, Catholics being cannibals, eating the body and blood of Christ, and every time Joyce, they'd ask him to do an edit, he would do it, but then he'd add in something worse. Joyce is a major picayune prick, when you think about it. Lots of funny stories about Joyce. His friend George Russell, A.E., The letters AE is what he went by. That stands for Eon, A-E-O-N. Helped Joyce tremendously. And George Russell is more than a footnote in history. He was a writer. He was a mysticist. He was into spirituality. And on the first pages of the Sisters, we have Rosicrucianism. Now, WTF is that? Well, I'll tell you. It's part of the it's part of theology. It's part of the Rosy Cross, part of the Golden Dawn, which I have much experience with. I am a 6 equals 5 degree member, a Adeptus Minor, Isis Temple number 14. Don't even know if it's still there anymore in Cali. You know, Peace Brothers and Sorors, Fretters and Sorors, anyway. So we have Rosicrucianism in it. We have A.E. George Russell in it, in the Sisters. And this is all told from, we're supposed to believe, a small boy, nameless narrator, the first 3 stories. Let me tell you now, they're coming exactly from Joyce's childhood mouth. And the rest of the stories are not. Those are from another narrator, but we can safely say the first 3, that's why they're so easily read, and they're such an end to Dubliners and Joyce. I'll probably be doing Evelyn too, is one of my favorites in here, but I'd rather have someone else do it, especially, well, I'd like to see a woman cover that, and I'd like to see someone new to Joyce cover that. So like I said, we have all month. I'm going to try to be laid back and let it unfold, not do all the stories myself. Some other, if you're coming into this, a great story is Grace, which is the second to last story. It wasn't going to end the book before The Dead was written. Favorite story of Joyce's. Grace is told in a 3-part way, which can be said for a lot of these stories, but particularly for this, 3 parts as in Dante's The Divine Comedy, meaning hell, purgatory, and paradise, heaven. I'd like to see someone else cover that. If not, I'd be glad to. I love that story, Grace. And stay away from stories like Ivy Day in the Committee Room. Great story, but it's about the history and the troubles and Charles Stewart Parnell and his downfall with Kitty O'Shea. And I mention this because this is, if you go on to read Ulysses and Finnegan's Wake, it's all in there too. Joyce's canon is it's a world. And I always say if it bites you in the ass, you'll know it. With any writer, you can say that. Will Self says, gets, G-E-T-S, good enough to steal. He says, why do you keep returning to Dubliners? How many times have you read that? He said, well, at least 4 or 5 times. Why do you keep returning to it? Because it's good enough to steal. Oh, you mean the book from Powell's bookstore? No, it's good enough to steal. I steal from Joyce's writing and for my own writing. Not bragging, 4 decades of reading Joyce. What does that mean? It means I know a lot of the secrets and the back doors and the ins and outs and little things that you find along the way. Spoilers, I guess. If you want to know this, they're all out there. Google it. Just Google a question, it will pop up. All the stories are available free in audio if you want to listen. That's how I've been reading Shakespeare for 40 years too, back in the day when VHS. So there and get drunk and read it, the text, and watch it. Very weird child. And I haven't even talked about the sisters, huh? Now, like Joyce was surrounded with mystics and people into occultism and spiritualism, like Yeats was in the Golden Dawn, and A.E. Helena Blavatsky was older than Yeats was older than Joyce. They knew each other though. They met several times. Anybody who wants to throw in a Yeats video, I would love that. I'm studying up on the Abbey Theater. If somebody would like to do that, that'd be great. I was only there one time, and I admit I was a wee bit drunk. I mean, well, now in Portland they have bars and movie theaters, and you can drink. You can go to McDonald's in Portland and get a beer, but it was unusual in '96 in Dublin for me to go into a theater, and everywhere you go there's Guinness. But I saw Oscar Wilde's A Woman of No Importance. I still have the ticket. What does that have to do with this? And I have a lot of notes on the dead, but we're talking about the sisters. Let me pull out my old standby. The Sisters is a spooky story, scary story. Make no mistake, that fucking priest, what is up with him? Is he a pedophile? Is he just what have they got on that guy? What year is this written in? I mean, I thought, the Catholic Church these days was bad enough, and you're telling me it was the same way back then? In 1904? I don't know, what do you think? It's only 6 pages long. What's a Goemon? What the heck is that? Those first 3 words in italics. Let's look at that. Paralysis, nomen, and simony from the Euclid. And everyone knows the Euclid, right? You know your Ovid, I'm sure. Helps to know Latin if you... I don't know Latin. I don't know any other languages. If you know another language, you have an in on Joyce about me. So the priest had his 3rd stroke. 3 strikes and you're out. And he's dead. Every main character in Dubliners is paralyzed. They find themselves in a decision that's going to change their lives. And they know it will. Even for the better. They want to take it. They need to take it. They don't take it. Why don't they take it? What's wrong with them? Are they paralyzed? Is the whole city of Dublin paralyzed? They can't seem to be free all these years. I'm going to let you find nomen on your own. Simony, or for let's have our Christian friends look that up, about Simon the magician in the Bible. I think it's in Acts. When they talk about simony, I think there's a word in there, simoniac. Is that like a brainiac? Simony is, simply put, if like a priest or an altar boy or somebody would steal a chalice and sell it on eBay, or if you take it to extremes, as Joyce would, a prostitute is committing an act of simony because she's using the holy temple of her body to make money. Simon the sorcerer, he's in, now do you a favor, Acts chapter 8, verses 18 through 24, my friend. Next page, we have the Rosicrucianism and the Order of the Rosy Cross, 15th century. Old James Flynn, Father Flynn. I too was smiling feebly, as if to absolve the simoniac of his sin. Excommunication, that's from the Pope. So, go on to a few pages on page 5. My aunt waited until Eliza sighed and then said, well, he's gone to a better world. Eliza sighed again and bowed her head in assent. My aunt fingered the stem of her wine glass before sipping a little. So where it says, my aunt waited until Eliza, I got a little star here. You can mark that if you care to, because of the switch in narration. That's the dashes. That's a European, I think it's like a Spanish way. Don Quixote is like that. But I have a version, the first version published of the Sisters was in, even right up the top. Here, everyone has seen the symbol. Now I feel like Robert Landon in Da Vinci Code. This symbol for the Masons, that's a compass and a square. Now they'll have a G in the middle of that. That stands for God. This is actually a 6-rayed star for Judaism, if you connect the dots. You all knew that, right? So, what was I talking about? Oh yeah, it was published first in the Irish Homestead with those pesky quotation marks, and that's where all the trouble started, and all the errata and the corrections and that. I'd like for everyone to, kind of at least make it through the Sisters without me going through this. Go ahead and use the second sources, use the Wikipedias and whatever else they have out there, but because these epiphanies are, they're not only for the characters, they're for the reader. And remember, Joyce is the first one doing this in literature. The style, these ideas that he's doing. Think of epiphanies as maybe hooks in a story, or these little twists at the end of a story. He's leading you down one road, and you think it's going that way. You know it's going that way. Where else could it go? That way. So for me to kind of even hint at that is to spoil it and rob you of that experience, and I don't want to do that. My goal is to, now, boy, we're in the 20 fucking minutes. Okay. If you stay this long, this is my hope. Dubliners is a bridge into Ulysses. And I'm a former English teacher. I've taught people how to read. I've taught in prisons, taught in colleges. I know Ulysses. I have 2 different editions that are annotated by me. I have another one that's in a box in Toledo that I was working on. There's a man who died a few years ago, Frank Delaney. I was going through, not personally with him, me and millions of other people, it turned out, but I started with him and worked with him for 5 years on his podcast, which is still up and running. He unfortunately died. I have the day and the time. We got through, halfway through episode 9, and this is line by line analysis. He would do it on Wednesdays from New York City, a podcast. And after years of this, eventually he'd go on to maybe a page and a half a week. But for a few years, it was just half a page of Ulysses at a time. So I have most of that in these two editions. I've annotated and lost several copies of Ulysses and Finnegan's Wake. I'll save my tie-dyed Ulysses story from Dublin for another time. Put the characters that appear in Dubliners that also appear in Ulysses. I'll put that up somewhere in before this. And so I'm you can see how I'm kind of hesitant, but I'd rather jump back into Finnegan's Wake than say Infinite Jest. I'm not afraid. My channel is big hard books and classics. All I read are big hard books. I'm going to read this month. I'm reading Against the Day, starting that this month. I read Grabby's Rainbow for the second time last year, 3 months. So I like to tackle big things. I've tackled Ulysses and Finnegan's Wake. So I'm ready. I'm not going to bring out Ulysses and go over it with you and make a big playlist and waste months of my time talking to myself. And also, it's cool to do this type of study in person in groups in your hometown. Everybody has an Irish culture. I'm involved with the Chorub Theatre here in Portland. We do contemporary Irish plays. I'm rambling. Walking, everything is documented here. You can take this is a walking tour of Dubliners, and there's things online. Yeah, I think there's probably a 24/7 camera on Connell Street Bridge in Dublin. So I'm excited, and I just want to get this out here so get the momentum going. Thank you for your interest and your time and your consideration.